So when we were discussing yesterday how can we monitor risks in real time and mitigate them in real time, I came up with this proof of concept called the risk monitor. Can you please go to the next slide? Yeah. So essentially what we're using, for example, one of the project management software, let's say we're using Atlassian software, okay? So we use this software for two purposes. First of all, we want to describe our projects, so project documentation. We use something called Atlassian Confluence. Confluence has the documentation such as the project charter, the schedules, the risk register, and so on, the artifacts that we produce to describe the project. The other way we use the project management software is to manage the project itself, right? To create the project tasks, to raise issues and resolve them if there are any, and to manage the iterations of the project, which is agile. So these are the two ways that the project management software helps us document our project, manage tasks for our project. Okay. So according to the project management body of knowledge, the 6th guide, the risk register is a continuously updated repository and is updated across all of the phases of the project, right? So this risk register is a living document. It's one of the most dynamic documents. However, it's not being treated as such yet. Next slide. So according to McKinsey studies, so first of all for us, we just create the risk register once during the beginning of the project and then we forget about it. That's a very big problem, right? Also, there are catastrophic consequences out of that. So some McKinsey studies, one of them found that specifically large infrastructure projects suffer from significant undermanagement of risk. And actually, a staggering 17% of projects perform so poorly to the extent that they threaten the organization's existence. These are very big problems. So ideally, how do we solve this problem? What do you think? We want to make sure we are always updating our risk registers, right? So how can we do that as humans? So first of all, we need to, every day, we need to track the changes that happen, whether in our tasks or our documentation. And then from these changes, we will create the new risk register. And then from this risk register, we've identified the high risks. So in the end, we have the high risks prioritized. So this is for you, Christopher, especially. Yeah. Across the different projects, we can have for every task the risk. So we see the high-risk tasks across the project, so we don't just allocate resources to the projects, we allocate them across tasks as well. Something more granular, right? So the way this can be done for, next one please, Michael. Okay. Yeah. So the first thing we need to do, every team member has to track any changes in the documentation, for example, new meeting minutes they took during the day, and have to track all of the tasks that they are performing and the issues they raised, and then they track them in an Excel sheet, say the task changed or the documentation changed. For example, I want to create a login page and I want to create a registration page for an application, right? So next, a risk expert needs to review these changes that we caught, and we need to identify what are the possible risks for each change, what is the factor and the sub-factor, categories for the risks, and finally the mitigation strategy, right? So we need to identify those to create our preliminary risk register. For example, for the login page, one of the risks is an authentication problem. It's a cybersecurity risk. You can have an unauthorized access. So the way to mitigate that, the mitigation strategy, is to have an MFA implementation, right? Multi-factor authentication. And then we want to put the impact, right? Yeah, the risk expert also has to put the impact for every risk, because I want to prioritize the ones with the highest impact, right? So let's be realistic, no one's gonna do that.
It's not true.
Yeah, but ideally this is what should happen. That's the ideal solution, right? So what can we do? Thank you, Michael. Yeah. So we want real-time high risks, almost real-time. So this is daily, but actually you can also do real-time, and I'll show you how. We can use automation to do each of these. So for the first step, for tracking the changes, we can use something called the webhook. The webhook will connect with Confluence and Jira, and any change that's made, it will be sent to my software. Any change, someone created a new task, it will tell the software, we have a new task, we have a new issue, someone changed, updated the task, someone added meeting minutes. So this technology, the webhook, it automatically gets any change in real time and informs the software, right, that there's a change that has happened. So this part can be automated based on what the new tasks we input and the new documentation we create. Okay. So what can I do next? So we just said that the webhook automatically gathers the change, every change that happens, sends it to the software. So what software this could be? This can be the AI software. I can use Claude and I can tell Claude, we have this new task. Please identify the possible risks associated, the risk factor and sub-factor, create categories. I give it the categories, for example, data, like governance issue, cybersecurity issue, operational risk. So I give it the categories and tell me a mitigation strategy. So the AI will take the changes from the webhook and then it will extract these fields for the risk register. Finally, what was the next slide? Yeah, sorry, the one before.
The one before.
Yeah. Yeah. Finally, I can ask Claude, based on this information you have about the risks, assign an impact based on how catastrophic this risk is, right? So can we go to the next slide? So this way, I track any changes in Jira and Confluence, where the entire project lives, right? The project management system is. I track any changes in it with webhook. I track the change. I send the new information to Claude. Claude will extract information about, it will extract the different kinds of risks, their categories, and their mitigation strategy. Then Claude will use this risk register to assign impact. So in the end, we can filter our risk register by the impact. The higher impact, the higher the risk. Okay? And what's nice about this, it's something that's happening live with every click right away. I will show you now a demo. The risks are extracted with every new task or every part of the documentation that's added. So, and this also can be nice to experiment with because at the end of the day right now we don't really track our risks, so it's a low risk solution. It will just inform you of the possible highest risks, and you look at them as a human and you validate. So instead of you as risk experts looking for the changes and making the risk register, this will be done for you, and then at the end of the day you can look at the high risks and see if you need to mitigate these risks indeed or not, or these pose real risks or not. So that's the human in the loop part. Okay. Yeah, so I just want to show you here quickly how it works, and then I will show it to you on my laptop.
Okay.
Yeah, can we go to the next one? So here, for example, I have a fintech project. I added a task called create a login page. So what will happen is...
This is Jira, right?
This is Jira, exactly. So I created a new login page. Can you go to the next slide? Then I have here, and I have a Google Sheet called the risk register. It will automatically go to this sheet and create, it will tell you the task description and the ID of the task, all of the risks associated with this task, the category of the risk, the mitigation strategy, and the impact. And then you can filter this sheet by impact at the end of the day, so you can see what risks you need to pay attention to, you need to verify as a human. Yeah, so I'll show you this now on my laptop.
Now we're going to demonstrate how the AI Risk Monitor works. Assume we have a fintech application that we are working on and we would like to create features for it. While we are creating features, we would like to capture the changes that happen in the project on Jira in real time using webhooks, and then seeing these changes reflect in our risk register right here on Google Sheets. So the risk register contains the task key or the Jira key, so the specific identifier for the task we have, and the description of the tasks that we set on Jira, as we're going to see now. Then the AI will identify all of the associated risk with this particular task. And for each risk, it will identify the risk factor or category and the risk subfactor or subcategory. It will also identify a mitigation strategy to see how to deal with the risk, to pacify the consequences of that risk, and finally, to help the experts prioritize the risks to observe and act on. There will be the impact, which will also be predicted by the AI. So let's see what happens when we enter a task. Let's say, for example, we would like to create a login page. And this is still in the to-do. So this is a proactive setting, right? When the task is created, just even before it begins, we are able to see in the risk register if we should have particular mitigation measures for this task or not. So as you can see, it happens in near real time. As I entered the task, the risk register is getting updated. So let's check, for example, this risk. Lack of compliance with authentication standards could violate the GDPR, the PCI DSS, or SOC 2 requirements. So these are all standards that we should comply with, and therefore this is a compliance risk factor. This is a regulatory violation. So what is the mitigation strategy? We should have the users put on complex passwords. We should have complexity checks. We should do encryption at rest to protect the data at risk and in transit, so the TLS 1.3 standard, and we do audit logging per applicable standards. The impact is 8. So this is one example. Another example for the risk could be the login page without proper authentication controls could allow unauthorized access to the system. So this is unauthorized access. This subfactor is part of the cybersecurity category, right? And to take care of that, we can implement multi-factor authentication, or we can do rate limiting on login attempts. So we don't have unlimited login attempts, right? And the impact is 9. Let's try another task. Let's say, for example, we want to allow users to add payment card so that they can perform financial transactions using that card. We're going to now see the risk register again, the webhook taking this new task and feeding the AI with the task description so that it could identify the possible risks and update the risk register in near real time. As we can see here, it's identified 4 more risks, some with financial fraud, compliance, and cybersecurity. Let's check the financial fraud. Weak authentication on payment, so this is a risk for allowing users to add payment cards. Weak authentication on payment method management could allow unauthorized users to add fraudulent cards, right? So the cards could be misused for fraudulent transactions. We can check the mitigation strategy here. We can use multi-factor authentication for payment method changes and CAPTCHA on card addition endpoint, and this indeed happens in the fintech applications. Now, we can also sort by impact, right? So this is something we can do. Sort the sheet from the highest impact to the lowest impact, because there could be, let's say, 50 projects with the changes being tracked across all 50 projects for each task. So of course I don't have time, or the risk expert does not have time to check every change that's done across all the projects in the portfolio. So this helps us prioritize the most important risks, for example, the top 10, and check if these should be acted upon indeed, and what mitigation should we do for these risks. So that's all I had for you today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the AI Monitor demo. And please subscribe if you're interested in more such content. Thank you so much, and see you in the next one.